The very first thing when you're making a video is the contrast between movement and static, because that's what attracts attention. And they know this in filmmaking. And when you're making a video, what you need to do is have some sort of movement followed by static. So it's kind of like, to go, oh, great. Hi, Angus. Movement followed by static. And you'll see this in, these guys who do these big marketing things where they jump out of a swimming pool and go, hey, and you see it on the ads all the time. So there's movement followed by static.
Welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast, where we guide natural health and wellness experts through the pitfalls of marketing. Each episode, you'll learn simple, effective, easily actionable, and heart-centered marketing strategies. And here's your host, Angus Pyke.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast. Now, my guest today is Dr Louise Mahler, and she's an expert in body language, voice, and emotion. She has a PhD in business and degrees and masters in organisational psychology as well as music. Now, her skills as a master practitioner in neuro-linguistic programming, combined with her professional performance experience on the worldwide opera stage. And these give her a unique perspective on presence and authority. Now, today, we're going to be talking all about the essential communication skills and techniques that we missed when we were learning to be health practitioners. Louise, welcome to the show.
Hi, everybody.
There's nothing like having a communication and speaking coach on, and then you go to do the introduction and you mumble it all up. So that was take two. All of you that are actually listening now, and then I'm worrying about what is my body language telling me at the moment as I'm reading this. Talk about kind of stress for it. But
I've got one of my clients who was telling me they were standing next to the Prime Minister on the TV this week, and they're standing there and they've got my voice in the back of their head going, nod, blink, smile like an idiot, nod, blink, smile like an idiot. All the instructions of what to do.
I might call this episode Nod, Blink, Smile Like an Idiot. Yeah. So maybe that's what it needs to happen. Now, how long ago do you think it was that you first spoke at Dynamic Growth at DG?
Oh, gosh. Was it 15 years ago, I think?
Do you know what? It maybe not quite that long ago, but I remember seeing you walk out onto the stage and being jaw-droppingly mesmerized, entertained and educated, enthralled and raptured, all those kind of things. You are a stunning presenter. You're gifted in that area there as well. And I forgot until I was putting together your the bio here too, about your opera background as well. Can you give our audience a little bit of your background? What brought you up until what you do now and how you help people now?
Well, there are two sides to my background, which people see as distinct, but I see as very much coming together to do, inform what I do today. And one side is the business side, and my PhD is business and org psych and economics degree. But the other side is I sang opera for a decade, and I was in Europe and I had a soloist contract at the Vienna State Opera, and I have a degree in music, masters in music, letters in music, all of that stuff as well.
Yeah.
But, it was working with people in body, in particular, in voice, that just got me fascinated about how, people move and make sound and communicate. And then when coming back into business after opera, I'm just like, guys, you need to know about this, and I wake up passionate about what I do every day.
Yeah, and you're also incredibly good at it. I remember seeing some of the chiropractors that you have coached and watching them go on stage after working with you. And the turnaround, when we watch shows like The Biggest Loser, where these people go from their befores to afters, and it's amazing. Your work is equally as impressive when you work with somebody that beforehand, some of the people I've seen you work with had lacked confidence, presence on the stage, go to just this. So it's learnable. We're going to talk lots about those kind of strategies today, which I'm really excited about also, because most people aren't naturals at it. And certainly as health practitioners, the people who I'm coaching to make videos and things like that, they're not naturals.
Okay. Well, first of all, stop.
Oh, I'm wrong.
I hate the word natural.
Okay, good.
There is no natural. It's all habitual. Am I talking to the right crowd here when I'm saying that? It's habitual. And I hear the word natural all the time. If someone is coming on or doing something in their voice like this and they go, oh no, that's natural. No, it's not. It's habitual. and people say, I want to bring a real me to the engagement. And I go, well, we're not seeing it now. That's not the real you. And so natural, not, and it's all about changing habitual patterns. So, and when it comes to changing them from what we are to what we need to be, we're just not told what we need to do to attract attention, to, make people interested. And so once we learn those skills, boom, transformational.
What's the difference between natural and authentic?
Yeah, great word. Yeah. Fantastic. So another word that I hear all the time, but it doesn't feel authentic. And I go, well, I have a little story about this, about in the acting profession, when the director turns to the actor and says, now, by the end of this act, what I'd like you to do is to be by the door. And the actor goes away and comes back to the director and says, look, I feel that my character by the end of the act wouldn't be by the door. And the director says, why don't you go away until your character does feel like it would want to be by the door? So that's the same thing when people say it's not authentic. We'll go away and practice it until it is authentic. So I believe that authentic is habitual pattern that is practiced enough until it feels natural and authentic.
Yeah, beautiful. I'd not thought of it that way. And I know in lots of the feedback that I give to people, I'm very passionate about this concept of authenticity, which is don't be trying to be something that you're not. But I could also see that if I had if my voice was hard to listen to, all those kind of things, and I needed to learn to articulate in a way that was easy to understand.
Voice is the choice.
Yes,
Voice
totally.
is the choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, this is a true life story. I was doing a training session and there was a man lying on the couch down like this on the session. And I said to him, could you sit up, please? And he said, that wouldn't feel authentic. And I'm like, let me see how much I care. Sit up,
Yeah. So I guess and we'll talk about this when we're learning any new skill. I'm guessing, there's going to be a time, even though that skill might be an effective communication skill there, it might feel a little authentic to begin with. But, habitual also insinuates that there's going to need to be some practice there until we can drop the layers away and it can become us.
Well, there are other things, like we give ourselves our own advice. So, for instance, we may say, I had a lady the other day who had an accent, and I got her to say, how are you? And so I was speaking like that, and then she said, how are you? And I go, that's perfect. And she said, but that sounds ridiculous. And I'm like, no, it doesn't actually. That sounds fine. It sounds ridiculous to you. So stop taking your own advice. We take our own advice. One of my clients, I got her to open her arms because she was very closed. And she said, I can't do that. That is ridiculous. So she went to work and said, hi, everyone. Hi. Does anyone have any questions? Opened her arms. And at the end of the day, she said, well, has anyone noticed anything today? And they said, yes, we have. And she said, yeah, I thought you had. Right, what did you notice? And they said, you are happy today. And she said, I am not happy. I'm just doing a ridiculous hand gesture. and they said, well, you look happy. So we take our own advice about how people interpret things. And of course we do, because we get these patterns back, in our formative years when we're about 8 years old, and it could be that the teacher says, what are 3 threes, Angus? And you go, 9? And she said, well done, Angus, well done. And in our formative years, we go, doing that is what I do, when I make a statement. And then we find ourselves 30 years later, we practiced it thousands and thousands of times, in front of business, and they go, what will be the results? You go, there'll be a profit. And then, and we think, no, but that's what I get the good response for, that expression. And it's not. And someone needs to say to you, stop doing that. Yeah.
You have put together kind of 5 tips or strategies for us to go over the things that, because so much of this, as you've beautifully articulated, like we weren't taught. And in fact, we probably had, not probably, we definitely had really bad patterns reinforced. So can we take it right back to step number one? Let's work our way through that. So at the end of this, we've got our audience, some things that they can take home and start to implement today, this afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Well, the very first thing when you're making a video is the contrast between movement and static, because that's what attracts attention. And they know this in filmmaking. And when you're making a video, what you need to do is have some sort of movement followed by static. So it's kind of like, to go, oh, great. Hi, Angus. Movement followed by static. And you'll see this in, these guys who do these big marketing things where they jump out of a swimming pool and go, hey, and you see it on the ads all the time. So there's movement followed by static. And when we're in this small screen, what we can do is actually just tiny little things like, look away and then go, hi, everyone, I'm Louise. Because can you see that works as opposed to this? Hi, everyone, I'm Louise, which is what we mostly do. Static followed by static doesn't attract attention. So we need movement followed by static. And the next thing is to be spatially aware, even within, this small screen, is that there is a spatial psychology. And if you watch television, you will notice that they are always in the middle. So if you put your arms out like that, you can tell from your arm length whether you're in the middle or not. And you're in the middle. And then that says the power position. The minute I go to the side, it's more facilitative. And you can use that to make a statement. So you can be at the side. I saw that, and then that's why we eat fish. Like you come back to the middle to make a statement. There is a psychology. You wouldn't go, and that's why we eat fish. It's weaker if you're at the side. Does that make sense?
Totally. And so we could almost, and I've heard you teach about this before, we could anchor positions throughout the screen with where we are in terms of here's where I make my bold points and here's where I bring them in and keep that movement so that there's some strategy about it.
Yes. And so, this anchoring of spaces, when you are on a stage, of course, you can do that physically a lot more.
Yeah.
But when we're here on screen, what we've got are our hands. And so often we're hiding the hands. We're hiding them. We need hands. I'm just putting in my mic there so I can use my hands. Hands are all about trust. And it's not a political statement, nothing about the man, but Trump, of course, is always showing his palms. This is trust. People want to see your palms. Now, we've got area where we can't go with the hands is around the face, but we have a lot of other area. And we can anchor different information with our hands, in different places. And you can see on the screen, you don't want to go outside the screen. So, using your hands to anchor information as well as your body. Spatial psychology, proxemics.
So I've got a question. I'm a very budding amateur photographer, and in photography we talk about the rule of thirds, and we often say inside of there that the thing that we want to draw the eye to, we actually don't put in the center at all. What you'll do is you'll put it over to the side at the matching one of those thirds there. And it's interesting how often that rule of thirds is through Da Vinci's work, through great pieces of art as well. Yet you're saying bring ourselves right back into the center there.
Watch the television. So, for instance, I have, slides that I sometimes put up. And if I do that, then, I'll go to the side. And that was the wrong slide to put up. But, if you've got a slide, you're here and the slides are here, and that alters the dynamic. But if you watch television, they are always in the middle. And there's a couple of other things, is that there's always a little space above your head, and that there is body for anchoring in the photo. So you don't have, and your eye is at, level with the camera, and you're one arm distance away. So, so often I find people, I'm talking and they're missing the top of their head, or we get the talking head. It's ridiculous. It doesn't work. So, for your screen, it's like this, unless you have something else working with you.
Yeah, I want our listeners, those of you that are actually listening to this as well, to be sure to come back and check out the video, because Louise is wonderfully entertaining in terms of showing her body positions throughout the screen with where we're going from here. You mentioned also about hands and the face and keeping them away from the face as I'm doing now. Is it okay to touch the face at any stage,
No,
or
it's
is that
not.
a no-no?
No, so there are different rules in the virtual world, and one of the rules is hands away from the face, Angus. See, I also, if I were looking at you and people can see you, to me, you're leaning forward,
Yes.
and I need the body upright.
Yes.
If I were honest,
Right.
I need the body upright, and then you're going to have to be closer to the screen.
Yes.
Because otherwise, anything that comes forward, we think, hey, how caring is that? That's really caring. Look at me, how caring I am. I'm so caring. Actually, you just look like a snake. You know, it gets, upright, upright, upright. Anything off to the side on the camera is messages of disconnection.
Right. Is
Some
that
way.
better posture from me now?
It is, yeah.
Yes.
Good
It's
man.
interesting because part of my way of, what was happening to my physiology there as I was engaged and listening, I was kind of leaning forwards, but I know exactly what you mean there.
Well, it's counterintuitive again. And you look at Julia Gillard. So Julia Gillard's back on the television. She was our ex-Prime Minister here in Australia, who's been lecturing at the university and off screen for quite a while, but now is back doing Q&A, a big television program. And Julia Gillard's habit is to throw her head for accent, to throw her head. Now in voice, that's called the CHOCK.
Yes.
And what it does is it strangles you. And
Yes.
if you're trying to be powerful, Angus, you're trying to be powerful, that doesn't give you powerful. It gives you aggression. So we're always trying to do things, look like we're listening, be powerful, but we're actually weakening ourselves, getting aggressive, looking, aggressive. And so we need to get advice because we're not taught these things.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so we're thinking about where we're orientating ourselves in the space. We're going to go kind of dead center as well. We're going to make sure our posture is upright. There's a little bit of space above our head here, and we're going to keep our hands away from our face. Well, totally. I mean, one of the things I notice often when practitioners are shooting videos, they're so far back, it's hard to engage with them because they're too far. And so you said to kind of
one arm distance from the screen. That's
great. This is such wonderful tips for our audience there today. So
it gives you the right proportion of bulk.
Yes, we've got that sorted. What next?
What next? Well, gestures, where to put them. This whole idea of gestures, if we're going to use the hands, what do we do? So people tend to go two extremes, either, I love to gesture, or no gesturing. No gesturing. Well, actually, none of that is informed. So what we need to do is make sure that we're doing congruent gestures and non-repeat gestures.
Okay.
So what are congruent gestures? Well, congruent gestures follow the eye patterns of humans. So for instance, when we think of things that are visual, we think, what would I look like? What would that look like? What would my vision be? 80% of us tend to look up. Therefore, our gesture for people when we're talking about anything visual is to go up. So you might say, look, what I'd love to do today is have a look at your vision. And I do an upwards gesture like this, painted in the sky. And then when we're thinking auditory, we go sideways. So I'd bring my ears, if you've got feedback, I'd love that. Please give me a feedback. Because I want to know that you're happy with this. Whenever we're talking emotion, we go down. So, I want to make sure you're happy with this. So let's have a look at your vision, get your feedback if we could, and I'll just check that you're on board with that. Now, this is called congruent gesturing. Instead of congruent gesturing, we tend to all have a repeat gesture that we do ad nauseum. That is highly ineffective, and that's what we want to get away from. We do want to gesture, but we want to make it congruent and not repeat. So there's visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and then the other favorite one is the timeline. So, you ask people, where's the future? The future is on your right, and your past is behind you. And there's a line that goes through your body. It is a timeline. So whenever you're talking about the future, the hand goes out here. Whenever you're talking about the past, the hand goes back there, and the present is here. So putting visual, auditory, kinesthetic, the future, the past, the present together, I might say, hi Angus, look, today, what I'd like to do is have a look at your vision and get your feedback, because I think it's going to be quite different, to the past, what you told me last week. So we'll look at that today, we'll work on it and just check that you're happy with that. I'm talking rubbish here, but I'm just trying to show you where the hands might go.
Beautiful. And it all makes sense as you're doing it. It's not for one moment, do I feel like hands are flapping around or anything like that too. It adds a level of engagement.
It does. It guides the eye. So we do gestures for 3 reasons. 1, it guides the eye of others. 2, it actually frees your body. If you're not gesturing, you can't breathe. Singers gesture, I love you. We go like that. You don't go, I love you. No, singers gesture to breathe. And the 3rd reason is it helps you remember. Because if you're anchoring information in different places, it helps you remember. It's called Roman rooms. You're actually remembering your information from where it is. You're going through your cubby house of rooms. Have you heard that before?
No, tell me more.
Roman rooms is a memory technique where it's like a cubby house of rooms. And you've got a cubby house. I always have a cubby house in front of me with different rooms in it. The future's out there, the past back there. I'll talk about 3 things. There are 3 rooms down here. Each of these 3 rooms has a list of things that, I might talk through. And each room has information. So gestures guide the eyes of others, free your body, and help you remember.
So along with those gestures, if somebody happens to be in a space that allows a little more movement, actually, let me start with this first. If I'm in a space like I am at the moment, where I'm not going to be able to get up and move around, but it's really only going to be movement in my chair, how much movement of my body should I have compared to movement of my hands?
Well, I tell you what, we've got to be aware. The hands are a prop, and if you're moving the hands, you can't move the body. So, for instance, if your hands are a prop, this is how you handle a prop. So, say I had this phone as a prop, and I wanted to say to people, have a look at this phone. So, I'd ask people to pick up an object and say to the screen, have a look at this phone. And I will guarantee you that almost everyone will go, have a look at this phone. And they'll move the prop. Have a look at this phone. See this phone. And it's the same. Have a look at this product. People can't see it. What you do, and you'll notice this from the sales programs on TV, is they hold the product still, but they move their body. So they say, hi Angus, have a look at this phone. What a phone. Isn't it fantastic? It's really brilliant what this phone can do. This phone. And they hold the phone still. They hold the object still but move the body. Or I hold the body still and move my hands. You can't have everything moving. Yeah,
it's distracting. And then are there movements that should be happening of the head as I'm communicating as well? Or is that best to be quite still? I will find myself, I move my head a lot. Is it too much?
Well, we are all a wind instrument. That's all we are, a wind instrument. And we have to learn how to play it. And often I'll use, if I can just grab this,
please,
I'll use a toilet roll. This is the larynx here, it sits in the neck. And if we move the head in any direction, it gets squashed. And the voice, in here can't work. So one of the key things with voice is the head has to be upright. And nearly all of us have what I call a power strategy, where we try to use the head to make sound. I'll do that. That's my habit. I'll do that. And I see you do that too. You come forward like this. And as I said, it's the Julia Gillard thing, struts like the CHOCK. And we have to try to avoid that. So the only movement that we really want with the head that's effective with sound is to nod from the soft bit, the soft hinge here, is to nod forwards. That's the movement that we want with the head. And that's a great listening movement, because when we get defensive, talk about preaching to the converted here, but when we get defensive, we jam the neck back. We jam the neck back. Now you can hear what happens to the head. So the body gets stiff, gets stiff like that. So we want to have the neck up straight and then the head loose on top of it. So that's your listening position, is nodding the head. No backwards, no quick, slowly forwards from that hinge there says I'm listening. It says I'm flexible of mind. I'm flexible of neck. Says I'm flexible of mind.
When how do you go about training people to learn these things? Is it a matter of kind of self-video, watching?
I hate
I'm
video.
becoming aware of what my habits
Yeah.
are now as we...
Or I hate video as a learning tool because it's a good tool in the moment, so you can watch yourself in the moment. But when you're watching yourself in the moment, you are the person and you're acting and responding in the moment. When you're watching a video back later on, we tend to watch it and go, oh, I should have done something about my nose years ago. You know, I never should have worn grey, never should have worn grey. And we focus on all the wrong things. And, you know, it's much better to not watch video, but to get feedback in the moment. So, and very physical feedback. So for somebody with a head issue, I will put my hand up the back of their head and hold their hair and hold their head. And they will realize how much they're fighting me. You know, I don't do anything. I don't pull them. I just say, that's your position, now speak. And you'll find people pulling away, especially when they want to, you know, be powerful. We have to learn that the head is on straight and the power comes from the lower body. No, you know, it's lower body. It's not head or neck.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because I'm interested. If I want to make a point, and I know that one of the strategies that I'll often do if I'm wanting to make a point is bring myself closer towards what's happening, and I'm understanding that that might not be the best way to go about it. So what are some of the body language and strategies that I can actually do if there's a point that I want to punctuate?
Yeah. So I would consciously get away from the center of the screen. I would move away. I'd have a look, and then I'd go, you know, and that's why we all need, you know, help.
Yes.
And so it's the movement followed by static. We mentioned first off, it's the proxemics issue where we come back to the center. I might come slightly more forward, but I wouldn't come too much more forward, because that's now got a different psychology. We haven't anchored that as the power position. We've anchored this as the power position. And then for the voice, I would go down in intonation to make a statement, and I would slow. You know, and you know, so some sort of movement like, and it's absolutely necessary that you have to practice.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I'd follow it by static, have to practice.
I'm wondering, there are a number of speakers who I really find very engaging, and I will often find them, there's a moment there where there's a thought and there's a look away and that movement into the point. Then I went, that I've seen that in enough people. I don't know whether it's an innate thing that they're doing, but I guess what they're doing is that kind of away movement, static.
Yeah, if I could show you standing up, you know,
Please.
if you're moving and you'd go, you know, we've looked at the skills and there's nothing for it, you would turn front on and say, and you know, and you'd say, and that's why you have to practice.
Yes.
And so from wherever you are, turn, state, and then move. You know, that's what makes a statement.
I think this comes back. When I was looking through your website, you know, there was this little state that said, at any time, research shows non-verbal skills carry over 4 times the weight of words and emotional times. It's like, it's just, and I know for many of the people I talk to, they're delivering great content in the words. I'm sharing the stuff there too, but it just doesn't come across. And what I'm seeing and hearing from you now is that, you know, more of our effort needs to be put into this craft of the space of my body in terms of what's going on. So, yeah, can you talk more about this kind of, please?
Look, the research on body language varies. It is always huge. You know, it's always really important, and we've lost that. And I you know, one of my questions is, why have we lost it? Why have we become so dissociated with the body and its meaning and its psychology? And it is huge, end of story, no matter what research you look at. And it is the game. So when you are a clerk in an organization or starting out, your body language is irrelevant. But as you become more into an influential position, a leader, it is everything. It is everything you do. It is what sends all the messages. And, what we're saying today is this is the missing ingredient. It's something we don't learn. And especially in this environment of the screen, we're magnified.
Yes.
So every little thing, stands out. So for instance, we'll get under stress, we'll get a tense jaw. And when we get a tense jaw, we start to move the lips instead of actually opening the mouth. And that can look really ridiculous. We need to have a loose jaw. These things suddenly become very important. Your eyes going off in different directions becomes, a huge flag. Now that we're in a Zoom environment, it is time to get this stuff right, because you can't get it wrong anymore.
I've got to imagine, though, as I'm thinking through this too, Louise, that all of this is also really powerful for me when I'm one-on-one with my patients as well. The same rules would apply, yes?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You will get away with more when you're face-to-face as opposed to on camera. You'll get away with a lot more incongruity and lack of space. But, I would have a place in the room for messages. When you have a message that is important for a patient client, to move to that space, stop, give the message.
Why does the screen magnify things so much? Why can we get away with more in person than we can over the screen?
Well, because look, we're one arm distance away. We're usually a lot further away from people, and you don't have the distraction of my legs and the room. Bang, we're right here. This is it. Your head, your upper body. That's it. That's all you've got. That's where the focus is.
Once we've got our space all sorted out, the body, we understand when we're communicating to have people looking towards a future as well. Yeah. Is there a way, let's just say that somebody's got 3 minutes. They want to share a little video. They're talking to their audience about coping with the stresses of sitting at a desk all day. Is there a way that we should structure that, 2 to 3 minute message with how we put that together, that's much more likely to be able to take somebody on a journey all the way through that?
One of the things that I'm finding with the virtual environment is that suddenly logic is hugely important, and where we haven't thought about it. We've been doing stream of consciousness. I have people going for interviews and I say to them, why do you want this job? And they start off with, that's not a good start. Well, there are 3 reasons why I want this job. Bang, bang, bang. So everything needs to be grouped into 3s and incredibly logical. Yesterday on the news, I heard a reporter say, we've increased unemployment benefits. And she said, before COVID, it was $40 a day. And now it's $1,100 a fortnight. Now, do you know, my first degree was maths and economics, and I have to sit there going, now hang on, $40 a day times 7, that's 280, times 2 is 560, 560 compared to 1,100. Okay, so it's nearly doubled, well, that took me time and effort to do, which is ridiculous. That shouldn't be happening. Why did they go from a day figure to a fortnightly figure? We can't work with that. So logic is hugely important, but that doesn't mean we don't fit in creativity. We do, but there are techniques to bring creativity into the work. So personally, I have a structure that has a message up front, a 3-part series with logic, and repeats the message at the end. And then I have what I call creative links that link to the message that I repeat at the end as well.
What can you tell me more about what you mean by the message up front? Is that the summary of it? Is that the benefits? What's the message up front? What does that entail?
So I might say, thank you, Angus, and really appreciate this short time to talk with all of your people about face-to-face communication. So that's my rapport building introduction. Yes. Then I go into something creative and I'd say, lot of people out there will have children, and my son, when he was small, he watched Bull Rider. He watched a Bull Rider movie. It was actually a documentary about a real bull rider who was passionate about bull riding, and eventually was killed by a bull. And the movie was called 8 Seconds. And I'll never forget it because we watched it 1,000 times. Well, Microsoft have just done some research to show that today people's attention is only 8 seconds. And we have to capture attention really quickly. And to do that, we need the skills. So I'm actually making that up in my head as I'm going along. But, you know, I wanted to get to a message and I just made that message up the last minute, need the skills. But I used a story that linked eventually to what we're talking about. So then I'd say, you know, and to give us those skills, I want to talk through 3 specific areas. So then I go through area 1, area 2, area 3. And at the end, I would say, you know, we're not riding bulls, but our audiences, like bulls, only have 8 seconds. We need the skills.
Yeah, beautiful. There seems to be a growing trend going around nowadays about the importance of telling stories and how stories are such a great way to engage an audience. Is there a framework for telling a story? If I'm going to tell a story, is there an optimal length? What are the ingredients of a story that is likely to make it engaging for our audience?
When it comes to stories, I think that we've become really interested in stories because it's words, and we love words. And you know, my PhD is where have we gone wrong? And it is that we focused on words and not our body and our voice, which, as we said, clearly in all the research are the key elements of communication. So when it comes to stories, you know, there are a specific, so for instance, with my story of the bull, if this were a 10-minute presentation, then I've only got 15, 20 seconds maximum for that story, or I would be disproportionate in the presentation. Stories have characters, they have, you know, a plot line, they have a time, place, you know, as much description as you can give them. Yeah, I tend to use them as creative links because I think the important thing is, what do you do with your story? It's not just a story, you know, the story has to link back to a message. And so often we don't want to do that. And I find working with people, I tend to say to them, so what?
Yes.
You know, so what? What do you want me to do, think or buy? You know, tell me what I need to do, think or buy. You know, very good, nice story. Now, what do you want me to do, think or buy? We've got to bring it back to a message is the key thing.
Beautiful.
And people aren't clear about their message. I'll say, what is your message? And people go, well, I kind of want people to really feel at home about, no, I go, listen, you've got 3 words, 3 words. Good messages are 3 words. Stop the boats. Make America great. It is time. Past, present, future. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost. 3 words, patterns of 3s.
What might that look like for a chiropractor? What might the 3 words be?
Oh, 3 words are, well, what do you want me to do, think or buy as a consequence of your video?
Well, well, it depends. I mean, if the video is just about you, hey, listen, I want you, we use that example that we did before about you sitting at your desk, and the message might be, I want you to get up every hour and move. Okay.
Let's think. Now you can group words. They might not be 3 words, but you can group them. I might go, let's think about it. So I group about it as though it's 1 word. You know, when it comes to sitting at your desk, you know, let's think about it.
Or could it just be move every hour?
Move every hour. Absolutely. Move every hour.
Right. So if I'm sharing a message inside my video, if I can sum it up at some stage with a 3-word statement there too, which would that be part of something which you have in the introduction as well as the summary at the end?
Yes. If it was something like move every hour, which is very specific, then I wouldn't state that up front. I'd say there's something we can all do. I would hint at the
curiosity.
Message. I'd hint at, and I'd say, and just like, riding a bull, there are techniques. When it comes to feeling great at work, there's something you can do. Let's work towards that. And then I'd go through the things, and then at the end I'd go move every hour.
Yeah. Louise, beautiful. I'm so fascinated by all of this, and that I love words, and I realize that there's so much of this that I have completely ignored as well. In kind of winding this all up together here, we've talked about the importance of kind of movement followed by a static, and for that to kind of attract attention, guiding the eye, the importance of we're holding an object and directing somebody towards an object. Maybe it's a pillow, maybe it's a vitamin, that kind of thing. The importance of kind of keeping it still. How to use our hands, congruent gestures. I know this is one that I have a gesture that I repeat all the time, as I'm sort of showing you now as well. And then that kind of listening and the right nod, right from kind of the occiput as opposed to the whole neck going forwards as well. Is there anything else that you would add to those points there to help kind of encapsulate what we've spoken about today?
Oh, eye contact. You can't go past eye contact. And, also I'd like to say that I think for chiropractors, this will become second nature so quickly. And, naturally we all look in different directions for thought. We learn that if we're going to look trustworthy, we have to look straight ahead. And there are eye escapes, and the eye escapes are that you can look at a thing, so I could say, this is something I'd like you to look at. I can look at a thing, or I can ask permission to look away, and I could say, Angus, let me think about that. But we have to learn the rules of eye contact, learn the rules of body movement. But eye contact is very important.
Yeah.
For trust.
And the mistake I see with that mostly, particularly, as I'm talking to you now, my webcam is slightly above where you are on the screen. So I've got to make sure I look at the webcam when I'm talking to you now.
Yes.
And then when you're talking, I look back down at the screen.
Yep.
But too often when I see people making videos, they're looking at themselves on the screen, not where the actual camera is. And there's that element of distrust that comes from it, because I feel like you're not making eye contact with me. So just as important with the camera as it is in person.
Yes. And certainly here when I'm talking to you, I put the photos of us as close as I can to the camera. And but I'm not going to talk to the camera all the time, because it's discussion. If it were a presentation, that would be different, because I can't have that authenticity, if I look at the camera.
Yeah, beautiful. Hey, Louise, if our gorgeous guests want more of you, how do they go about it? Where do they find you? Can you talk about some of the courses and things that you run that might kind of help them better integrate this?
Yes. I'm doing webinars for different organizations to build the skills. But also I have a membership that people can join. And the website is The Mahler Method. Mahler is my surname, so it's themahlermethod.com.
Beautiful. I'll make sure I kind of have all these links in the show notes. And I want to encourage our listeners, certainly, if you haven't watched the video version of this, then you've missed out on a significant portion of what we've been talking about, because so much of it, these are visual mediums there as well. So I want you to come back, because mostly you'll get to see how beautiful Louise is, and you'll kind of see her whole movements through there as well. Louise, it was so lovely to catch up again. And I felt like I've kind of that bridge between when I last saw you on a stage through to now has narrowed really very much too. Any final thoughts to share with our listeners?
Give it a try.
Yeah, great start. Louise, thank you so much. I look forward to hopefully seeing you again in person. We're both Melbourneites there as well. And thanks again. See you soon.
Thank you, Angus.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out the Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work one-on-one with you to apply, implement, systematize, and help guide you and your practice to the next level. Now you can join me over at adiomedia.com/join. That's adiomedia.com/join. I'd love to see you in there.